Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. We are going to be getting on with work on our project BedBug, and there's a couple of areas that I've been kind of putting off, and I'm going to have to address them in this episode. But just before we get on with that, I have been getting on with some other bits since the last episode, so I'm just going to show you what I've been up to. So first up was this door gap. It wasn't perfect. It had some weird wonky lines up here. We did a lot of repairs up in this area and also added the semaphore indicator, and the panel wasn't quite straight. So what I've done is a little bit of filler work just down this edge, and I've just ran a piece of paper down this gap just to get it, well, to get it uniform. So I have been getting on with this door. Previously this door was in bare metal. I did have to run the DA over it and the flat wheel just to get rid of a lot of the corrosion, and then on top of that I did treat it with that special resin primer, and then it was guide coated and blocked down, and there was lots of imperfections, loads of high spots, loads of low spots, and then what I've done is I've just put a scree of filler over the whole door, and I've gently blocked it down just so I can see what I'm doing. And there's a couple of little areas like these high spots here that need to be addressed, and a couple of little low spots here you can see in the guide coat. But saying that, considering the state of the doors, this is actually going pretty well. Just a little bit more work and we can get this straight. And under the bonnet area, I've already removed the bonnet hinges and also this fella here, which is the bonnet stay. Yes, and that does mean I'm getting on with one of those areas that I'm not particularly fond of prepping, and that's underneath the bonnet area and also inside the car underneath the footwell and the dashboard. So one of the areas that's often forgotten on Beetles is this area here underneath the bonnet. I mean, to be honest, I do like a tidy area underneath the bonnet, but it is a lot of work to get all this stuff prepped. And Project BedBug does have a little bit of corrosion here and there, but not only that, this panel over here you can see is badly distorted, and there's a lot of ripples on the inside of this quarter panel where it had quite a big smash, so I've got to try and make this a little bit tidier as well. But before I get on with the prepping, I've got a load of junk still to remove. I've got this here, which is the brake reservoir, and it sits about here. This is not original. This is actually off a later car, and this bracket here looks like it's been stolen from a later Beetle, which would have had it installed up here. And something like this here, it has two pipes, which means it's running a twin master cylinder for the brakes, which is great. It means that the front and rear brakes have their own fluid. So if you're going to lose the rear brakes or the front brakes, at least you'll have some brakes. And as we know, the wiring on BedBug is absolutely rubbish. It is original, it's very old, but over time wires have burnt out and people have kind of twisted wires together, added bits to the loom, taken a lot of wires off. I mean, BedBug, when it turned up, although it was running with only very small amount of wiring connected. But on Volkswagens, that's all you need really. It's a couple of wires just to get the engine running, but the rest of it, well, I doubt it even worked. And on the inside, we need to strip all this out. I need to drop the column down. I need to take the steering wheel off. I need to take the bezel off here. I need to take this grill off here, the ashtray, the switches, the glove box lid, etc., just so I can prep this area. But not only that, I do need to prep this area underneath the dashboard and inside this footwell, as this will be painted. Something else I did ahead of time as well was a bit of glove box adjustment. This glove box lid did not fit very well, and I had to do a little bit of tweaking on these hinges just to get it to sit in its hole a bit better. And once I know this fits, I can then prep it. So the wiring loom on BedBug is rubbish. We've already determined that. Just something I will say though, the wiring loom here, you can see has been drilled and it goes through here, but originally on an early Beetle the wiring loom is more likely to go through the pillars. This is no longer an option as I do have the skylights here, so I will be running it down through here again, but it does look like it's in the wrong place. On later Beetles where they do run along the side of the heater channels on the inside, they've actually got a grommet down here. It's further down, and I'm sure I can make this a little bit neater. At the moment, it's kind of in no man's land underneath the dashboard. So as this area here will be painted, it seems weird just having a loom just hanging in the middle of nowhere. If this had carpet, this wouldn't be so much of a problem, but it just doesn't look right here. So what I'm going to do is remove these holes here, and I'll probably route the wiring further on back down here just so it can follow the inner arch and then along the heater channel. So the wiring from the back has already been pulled through. We did a lot of work at the back here, as you can remember. So I've just pulled the wiring through and it's just a jumbled mess. You can see here that it's been extended and, well, I'm not entirely sure what's going on. The wiring doesn't match. There is a bit of original loom down here. What I'm going to do though is normally I try and take out looms in one complete piece, but this is absolutely rubbish, so I'll be cutting the loom out. So if you're new to the wonderful world of VW wiring, or you have a memory like a sieve just like mine, make sure you take lots of photos of the wiring and how it's routed before you disconnect it. And also it might be a good idea at this point to try and find yourself a good color wiring diagram as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start removing this wiring. As I said, I'm just going to cut it and pull bits of wire off here and there. There's going to be absolutely no finesse, but one thing I will do is I'll probably keep a lot of the components, the switches, the fuse box and everything else still connected to the original loom as I rip it out. And something else that's worth mentioning, if you're new to doing this kind of stuff and you are reusing this original loom, might be worth just using a bit of masking tape and label the wires. So the wiring loom and the switches have now been stripped out. That was pretty easy going. I did have a problem with one bolt, which was this one here. This is for a tube that the speedo cable runs through, and there was two M6 bolts underneath here. They came undone, but unfortunately this one didn't, so I ended up just using the flap wheel on the angle grinder to take the head down, and then I just drilled it and tapped it. So the next thing I need to attack is this dash area. I need to get it all stripped out. So that's the dash area totally stripped out, along with the under bonnet area. So just before I start the horrible task of prepping all of this underside bonnet area, there's a couple of little bits I'd like to do first, and it does involve a little bit of welding. I'd like to weld over this area here. You can see that there's previously been drilled, but the metal has actually fatigued and cracked out. I don't know if I need this hole in the future, but I'd rather repair it now and re-drill this. I'd like to get rid of this one as well. There's another one here, and those holes here where that loom was passed through. But before I get on with that, I'd like to start stripping the paint off this dash area. You can see that there's quite a bit of corrosion in areas. I don't know how bad this is yet, so I'd like to clean it up just so I can inspect it. It's the same over this area here. You may have noticed that there's a bit of tape here, and I wasn't too sure what this was about because the customer had actually supplied a blanking cover for this here, which originally would have been for a stereo. But interestingly enough, I think the customer wants to put another stereo in there, and he wants me to modify this hole slightly, but I don't have a stereo, so I don't know how to template it just yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and I'll cross that bridge at a later date. So I've been using the wire wheel on the angle grinder just to strip off all this old paint on the dashboard area, and it's going pretty well, but I thought I'd just show you this here. You can see that there's the original black color here, but on top there seems to be a primer and this crazy looking copper color, and then on top of that there's the red color. So it seems BedBug has been painted plenty of colours. If you remember, the exterior was a kind of red oxide colour, but I do think it would have looked really cool in this copper colour at some point in its life. The problem is though, you can see this red paint here that's just kind of flaking off, so that's no good. I cannot put any paint on top of this, so I've got to remove it all. So that's the dashboard wire wheeled, and then what I've done is just ran the DA sander over the top. And areas like this here where you can see there's some corrosion, I mean, originally I thought I was going to cut these sections out and repair them, but to be honest, I don't think they're bad enough. So what I'm going to do is use my rust treating products on these kind of areas. So the next thing I need to do is prep the underside of the dashboard, and this is not my favorite kind of job. I'll be using a DA sander and that small DA sander as well, probably with something like an 80 grit, just to see if I can clean some of this junk off. So also what I need to do is remove quite a few little small tacks that are kind of scattered around this footwell area. These originally were for holding the carpet into position, and this will not be having any carpet, so those tacks will need to be removed and the holes welded over. So I've been beavering away, getting those areas that I don't really like working on into some kind of shape. And underneath the front here, what I did is I welded over all those holes. I had a hole here with a crack in it. I had a large hole here with 2 holes either side. I had another couple of holes here, and I also had those holes where the wiring loom went through. So with all those holes welded up, I could grind them down, and what I've done is I've just applied a bit of fiberglass over those areas. And there was also a section here which is a little bit crusty, so I rust treated that, sanded it back, and then applied some fiberglass. I also applied some fiberglass to the areas of the dashboard that we'd already repaired. There was a hole here that we made smaller, and there was a hole here that we deleted. And once the fiberglass was on and it had cured, I was able to sand it back. So under the front here, I've been concentrating my efforts just on this area here. I haven't even gone as far as the tubs or the front valance, and this is for good reason. Any type of welding or anything that generates a lot of heat, I really need to kind of get sorted now, because this area is actually above the footwell area inside the car. So as you can imagine, if the area inside the car was already prepped with the filler and the primer, any type of welding or anything like that will actually damage all the work that I've done on the inside. And talking about the inside, well, it's going pretty well. I have managed to get most of this scuzzy paint off. I've still got a little bit more to do on the underside and a bit more in the footwell. I've also managed to weld over all of those little tack holes. I've still got to grind those back. But you can see here, there's rust appearing. I did this work yesterday, and overnight it's already started to flash rust. The thing is, in Japan at the moment, it's very humid. We've had some really hot days followed by some showers, and this is causing everything to flash rust. So what I'm thinking is, I'm just going to carry on prepping this area, and let's see if we can get some of that resin primer over the bare metal. So finally, that's the dashboard and the underside area in the footwell all prepped, and I've even degreased it twice. And what I've done is I've just loosely masked up the area just to stop any overspray blasting around and going through to the other side as well. You may have noticed I haven't masked up around the tops here or down the sides. I don't really want this primer to go around the corners, so I'm just going to hold a bit of card just to stop any spray. What I want to concentrate on is the front of the dashboard and just underside this area. So that's a couple of coats of that special bare metal resin primer on the dashboard and inside this footwell area. And while it's all masked up, I'm just going to spray a bit of guide coat over it. So once this whole area is cured off, I can then block it down, finding any imperfections. Any imperfections can then be sorted out with the body filler, then rubbed down, and then this whole area can be primed. So detailing dashboards and in the footwell areas can be a right chore. And in this case, it's something that I have to do. This whole area will be painted and it will be displayed. As I mentioned before, it's only having rubber mats in the footwell, so the heater channels and the bulkhead panel underneath the dash and the dashboard itself will all be visible. So if you're doing a build like this and you take the body off the car, you're doing a body off restoration, areas like this are a lot easier to get to and a lot easier to prep. But you don't always have to do this, it's completely up to you. A lot of this kind of stuff in the footwells and down the sides is covered by carpet normally. So what I recommend is, well, if you can spend some time doing the inside here, it's a nice thing. It's good to have a good coat of paint on these areas that will be covered up by carpet. And it's a little bit like what we did on the 67 project. So it's been absolutely ages since I've done any work on the 67 project, but when the body was off, I did spend time just prepping and cleaning the inside area like this. Although this will eventually be covered in carpet, I know that all this area is well protected. So yet more deliveries arriving at the workshop. This here is a whopping great can of silicone off or panel degreaser. Obviously I'll be using loads of this in a preparation stage. I've got a whole box of this stuff here. This is actually stone chipping spray. In the UK I generally use these in a shorts gun, but to be honest, in an aerosol can for this job would be perfect. There is more than enough there, and also it is over paintable. In this box here, I've been using this 3M Cubitron kind of paper to do this job, and I used it on the Beetle as well, and it's great stuff. But I've got some different grades here. I've got a 320 and a 600. And in this box here, I've got a couple of boxes of tack rags. These are absolutely great. Just wipe the panel just before you put the paint on, and it does help remove any debris that's in the paint, any silicons and such. And in this last box, there is lots of tubes of this stuff here. And this is an over paintable sealant that can be used for panel joints and things like that. And what I normally do is, after I've done the resin primer stage, I add some sealant in between the panels, and then I can overpaint them with primer. So there you go, that's another little bite from quite a big project on Project BedBug. And thanks as always for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. I will be leaving a little bit of footage at the end of this video too, if you're interested in a bit of Japanese culture. But not only that, I did pop into Old Car Market, so I did have a quick look around and found an amazing low light gear. If you wanted to watch that, just stay tuned after this episode. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Cheers!